conceptual perspective to view things. People talk about it as arrogance, success, all of the elements.
Okay, hello everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace here, dropping in on you once again. I want to thank everybody for stopping by. I've brought on a guest who also happens to be a client of mine to talk about something that's very important to her and should be very important to every last one of us. Before we get started and before I introduce her, I want to remind you, hit that like button, hit and hit that share button. Let's get this channel back to where it was before they took it down. Let's make that happen. Hit the like button, hit the share button, and don't forget to show your love and your support for the work that we do in the community consistently. With that being said, I want to introduce you to Hope Ransom. I've had the pleasure of working with Hope on some personal goals and achievements, and she brought something to my attention that I thought was worthy of bringing before you guys. I'm going to introduce her and then we'll talk about it, give you some insight on it. And I want her to kind of tell the story, so I'm not going to speak on it until after she introduces it. But basically, she has a daughter that she's trying to look out for that's a part of the system. And I'll let her tell you as much as she wants to share. And then we'll talk about it from there. But it has to do with the current situation with COVID-19 and how the inmates and are being treated, and what was once being promised, and it's kind of following the back burner. But anyway, Hope, go ahead, introduce yourself to everyone, let them know who you are, and we'll kind of get into this thing.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Wallace. My name is Hope Ransom. I have a daughter that's currently an inmate at the Lane Murray unit in Gatesville, Texas. And of course, I'm in contact with her when they can be in contact. Because of the COVID-19 thing that's going on, they're currently on like lockdown. Their unit has, I believe it's the highest number of cases. As far as I know, they have the highest number of COVID-19 positive inmates, along with the officers. And I know in my county, but even possibly they're ranking up in the higher numbers, you know, number one, number two in Texas, I believe. And I wanted to kind of discuss that.
Okay. Before we get off into that, there is one thing that I think that we need to just shed a little bit of light on, so people are aware of, you know, who you are, where you stand, because, you know, some people might go find your, after this, might go seek you out on social media, and what they'll find is that you have been very outspoken when it comes to your belief or your trust in what we're being fed through the media concerning COVID-19. And so it may lead some to have questions as to if you don't really feel it's that big of a deal, or what, you know, I hate to use that form, but if you don't believe that the numbers are valid, what is the major concern about your daughter? And I think it's important that you address that, because I think that first and foremost, I can say this: living conditions in the free world is a huge and distinct difference between how inmates live in proximity to one another on a regular basis and the level of health care they receive. And so I think that needs to be understood. It also needs to be understood that we are talking about a non-violent offender, and we're talking about it because Texas had said that it would consider releasing nonviolent offenders to reduce the chance of them contracting the virus. That never took place. While requests were made, there has been no movement on it, and we're looking for some answers. We're looking for some mobility and action on that level. If it's, we're not, this is not about giving anybody a pass, but this is about compassion. This is about understanding how our loved ones are treated within the system. And it's about looking out for those we care about. And I think before we jump on our high horses, that's one of the things that we need to understand. This is not about giving anybody a pass, but it's about saying what they did shouldn't result or equate to a form of a death sentence.
Exactly.
And so kind of talk about just briefly, so they understand that, where you come from as an individual and where you're sitting as a mother with a daughter who is caught up in this situation,
Exactly.
being incarcerated.
Okay. Well, just coming from the standpoint of being a human being, I do a lot of research. It's my job for myself and for my children, I have children here at home, to know exactly, or to the best of my knowledge, what's going on concerning any outbreaks or whatever. From what I have looked up, it looks like these numbers are greatly exaggerated for whatever reason. I've done research when it comes to viruses, how viruses are spread, and all of that. I've gone to the CDC webpage and how it's reported and all of that. So as far as this whole thing and the number of deaths, I do believe that it has been exaggerated. I believe that there is an agenda, but whatever that agenda is, I don't know, I can't call it. Okay. What I do know for sure, or what I do believe for sure, just based on some of the people that I've talked to, is that people with underlying diseases or underlying issues, medical issues, that they are at a far greater risk at contracting whatever this is that's going on. They're at a far greater risk. So they need to be more careful, and they just need special provisions. That's been proven. That has been proven. My daughter, she has asthma. She's had asthma all her life, and it's not mild asthma. It's critical. My daughter actually stopped breathing. I don't know. I can't say she wasn't medically counted as being dead, but on my living room floor some years ago, she stopped breathing and was without breath in her body for some minutes before the ambulance came in. So this is how serious her asthma is. In the system, in the prison system, these prisoners are, there is no social distancing. There is no fresh air to be breathed. They are, my daughter's current situation, she's locked inside the cell with other inmates, of course. And I don't know if people know, but that's not the most hygienic place to be. The healthcare is not what it is outside of prison. So at any time, if she has an asthma attack or if she comes down with COVID or whatever, she's at the mercy of the officers or whoever if they feel that, they need to take it serious or whatever. And when it comes to loss of breath, there is no time for contemplating anything. So I spoke with her a few days ago. They are locked in. They don't even get a chance to come out of the cell at this point, not even to eat. They are served sandwiches every day, all day. These sandwiches are actually brought in from another unit because the whatever this illness is just running rampant inside their particular unit, which is the Lane Murray unit in Gatesville, Texas. I believe in Coppers Cove, not Coppers Cove, that's the city I'm in, but in Coryell County, which is the county of Coppers Cove. In Coryell County, I believe the last I checked was right around 100 cases in the entire county. That may not be the exact number, but it's somewhere right around there, where half or over half of those, somewhere in that area, guys, is all from this one unit. This one unit has all of these people that have come up positive for the COVID-19. So this is, of course, this is of great concern to me. Like I said, with my daughter having this serious asthma disease, she is at very high risk right now. And like I said, with her being a nonviolent offender, I don't want, and I don't even think that it's right that her time may be changed from, you know, a regular sentence to a death sentence.
Right. And I think that it's important for those who aren't familiar with Texas prisons and a lot of prisons around the nation, but Texas prisons, what you have to understand is the vast majority of units that are state owned, because there are some private prisons, there are a lot of private prisons in Texas, but for units that are state owned, the vast majority of them don't have air conditioning. They are not air conditioned units, so there's no filtrated air systems. The conditions during the summertime are virtually unbearable. And while a lot of times the media tends to give the idea that prisoners are serving time in their own individual cells, that is a rarity in today's mass incarceration culture, where most prisons are dormitory style, meaning that you have anywhere from 30 to 50 people in each block, and they're sleeping on bunks and right next to each other. Literally, you could reach over and touch your neighbor on the next bunk over, and you have someone on top of you, and so you're sharing your space with 20, 30, 40, 50 people, depending on the size of the dorm. So if something kicks off in that dorm, you got 30, 40, 50 people that can be directly impacted by it, because of the simple fact there can be no spacing. The other element that she makes a point in revealing is that if you're talking about someone who needs to get their medication, okay, that's good. You're talking about people who have mental health issues that need their mental health medications. They get that. You talk about people who have diabetes or high blood pressure. They get their meds systematically. You get your meds. That's no problem. But if you have any type of critical issue, you are in trouble.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just that simple. If something life-threatening goes on, your risk of not making it is exponentially
Increase.
higher than
Yes.
if you were in the free world. It's just
Yes.
that simple. So you don't want a loved one in that condition. And
Exactly.
the way that we are approaching this is, if we're talking about someone who is a nonviolent offender, meaning that they're not going to come out and be an immediate threat to society, I think that there's a way to go before the parole board and request clemency, which is saying that we're asking that they be released early, and that there is literally scientific data that supports it. Again, we're not asking for a pass. I mean, they're going to come home and still be required to report and sustain a certain type or standard of behavior and follow certain rules and regulations that will govern how they are until they have served out the completion of their sentence. That's on regular parole, and it would be no difference. The thing is, we're saying is, if they don't pose a threat to society and they can be deemed capable of integrating into society, I think that has to be considered. I don't think that we're talking about somebody that's in on a drug rate related offense, for instance. I didn't ask Hope what her daughter was on. She told me it was a nonviolent offense, and I left it at that. But when I think of nonviolent offenders, I think of theft primarily and drug offenses, drug related offenses, possession. And you got to think a lot of times the way that our people are handled when it comes to drugs specifically is completely different than the way white people are handled when they are struggling with an addiction and they do things. And I think that we have to consider that as well. They have to consider that as well. So my thing is, I wanted to bring this to the attention of the public. I wanted to get it out. I wanted to share it. I wanted to give Hope an opportunity to share what's going on. What we need to do is get on the phone with our state representatives, get on the phone, start sending messages to the governor, get on the phone, send emails to the Texas Board of Pardons and Parole, and start talking about the safety of nonviolent offenders. And Texas has a very hardcore approach against offenders, period. It doesn't matter whether you are a violent or nonviolent offender, that they have a very hardcore approach. And so you also have to understand that there's a lot of money involved in this, and we have to be honest about that.
Right.
So
if I can say something, when it comes to what my daughter is in for, my daughter is in for a drug-related offense. But when it comes to drugs, unless there was a, gun involved, or if there was, something going on that made it, aggravated or something like that.
An aggravated
There
offense,
are
right?
lots of people that are in, of course, for drug-related offenses or whatever. And as we know, Black people, they are held to a greater standard. Their punishment is much higher, much more severe. She has, I believe it was a possession charge. This has nothing, to do with any violence that she herself, was involved with or whatever. So it was a drug-related charge. But like I said, it was not any violence, no evading arrest, or anything like that. So for a charge that is drug-related, something as simple as that, to turn into a death sentence, this is what, my concern is. And like I said, in the Black community, it's not that white people or Caucasian, however you want to classify them, it's not that they don't have these same charges. It's not that they don't go in and face the judge and get time for these things. But it is known that Caucasians don't get the time that Black people get, But we're not really here to speak on that. I just wanted to clear that up because we did not speak about what my daughter was in for.
Right.
We did just kind of leave it at a nonviolent offense. Now, if it's okay, I'd like to back up a little bit and say, when it comes to COVID-19, what my feelings are about the actual disease or virus or whatever it is, my feelings through all the research that I've done, because I'm continually researching. It's me. I have a father who has underlying conditions that I take care of. I also have younger children. So it's my responsibility to stay up on, one, what's being said, what's being put out to, but for me to dig deeper so that I know exactly what other doctors, what other virologists, are people who specialize in this virus or in cells and how things are spread. I go deep into this. So from even coming from a Black stance or one that is heavily melanated, it is known that we need vitamin D. We need these things in order for our bodies to function the way that they're supposed to function. It's known that most Black people have a deficiency in vitamin D. And if we're locked inside of the house, we can't even get the sun that gives us this vitamin D. If we're locked inside, like we said, the prisons, they are a whole different entity they don't have the access to outside. So they're further, especially being on lockdown, they're further put in the position of being kept away, or, you know, not able to get the vitamin D. So, you know, our vitamins, minerals is so important, you know, to our basic health. And when it comes to this, one of the other things is the inability for our bodies to uptake the oxygen, in which this is the part where, you know, she has her issues with her lungs. So all of this creates a more severe situation for her. I personally believe that we need to get into the open so that we can breathe fresh air, so that we can come face to face with the sun. I believe that, and it's not just my belief, it's what the statistics are showing, that we need to be able to exercise. When you're stuck in a cell, what, 8x8? I don't know. I don't even know if it's 8x8 or above. It's very, very small, where you don't have adequate room for exercising, breathing fresh air. The air that you're breathing is recirculated, like Dr. Wallace was saying, between the other inmates in there. So that's why it's running so rampant inside the facilities. And this is very concerning. I do believe that, you guys, that we have a responsibility to ourselves to take care of ourselves and know what's going on and be proactive in keeping ourselves healthy. And how can we do that? And how can these inmates do that when they're locked inside, only just waiting to be the next one to die?
Right. And so there's so much to what was said. And again, I am a staunch advocate of a person being responsible for knowing what they're dealing with and being aware, so that you can readily and adequately filter and interpret what you're being fed to know whether or not you can trust it or not. I think that that is important. And I will simply close on this because I have to get off and get ready for an appointment. But I did want to allow for this time to kind of bring this to the attention in the forefront of what's really going on and why there's very little conversation about this. Again, this is not about giving people who have done something wrong a pass. This is about saying that first and foremost, we have to acknowledge that someone who is struggling with a drug issue or drug addiction or whatever it is, that's Black is treated differently in the system than someone who's struggling with it that's white. And the time that is given out is tremendously different. And more importantly, there aren't programs that actually help to on an intervention level so that we don't have a high recidivism rate. In other words, if the time spent inside was more directed towards addressing the issues that led or pushed them towards the addiction in the first place, we wouldn't keep revisiting it. And so there are a lot of different things that have to be addressed on that. But at the same time, if someone didn't harm anyone in the commission of their crime, meaning they are a nonviolent offender, and there aren't any issues on their record while being incarcerated that says they will have a problem integrating back into society, and especially those like Hope's daughter, Faith, that's her name, by the way, especially someone who has asthma, severe asthma, and makes them susceptible and has, meaning that they're compromised in a way that they are literally much more vulnerable to COVID. I think that it is incumbent upon us to make the state honor what they said they were going to do in the first place, which was simply take those who were nonviolent offenders who would probably be coming up for parole within a year or two anyway,
Yes.
and just saying, okay, we're going to go ahead and let you go. They're not being completely released. Anybody that's ever been on parole, no, you're still not free.
That's right.
But they're just being supervised from outside of a penal institution that is not equipped to handle any type of emergency. Like I said, passing out medication and things of that nature, that's good. They can do that. They'll distribute meds. But if you get sick to where your life is dependent on the service you get, you're in trouble.
Yes.
And so we need to avoid that, and we need to care about our loved ones enough to make noise if we have someone that's in there, because they don't look at them as human beings. I'm sorry.
That's right. That's right. I here have a letter that I just received back yesterday from the Board of Pardons and Parole, where I petitioned them to give her an early release. And that's even if she had to go back. I just want this COVID-19 thing to be able to go over. And even if she had to go back and finish the time, this is not me trying to get her out of her time. She's responsible for what she's responsible for. But I got this letter back, and basically it's denying and saying that it's been denied because she's been seen as being able, or she has over 6 months to live. It's not a disease or something that she'll be dead in 6 months. As far as her asthma will allow her to live for over 6 months. So under that, she does not qualify to get out early, even though, what's going on in her unit is really bad or whatever. But I have been trying to go through the processes of, putting her case out there and let it be known. And these are the responses that I am getting back, just to let you know that.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. Okay, everybody, anybody that has any input, anybody that may have some legal insight or political insight into the best approach of dealing with this, you can email me at the usual space CEO at rickwallacephd.link, and I will take it and I will pass it on to Hope. And if necessary, I will connect the two of you. But like I said, Hope is an actual client, an actual paying client, and she just happened to mention this while we were talking. And I decided to give her the platform to share that, because nobody knows what our parents and mothers, and I want to share this. I really do have to go, but I think this is important. Hope is a representation of the Black reality for years, in that she has adopted and is rearing her daughter's children. That has happened. So I'm a product of that. I was adopted and reared by my mom's parents. And we have to look at what that means for us on the long term. And we have to look at the psychological impact of that. And we have to understand that in the midst of all of this are those babies. And so it's a lot to think about. But when we were talking, I just thought that I would give her that platform. I want to thank you, Hope, for coming on. I want to thank everybody that's going to see this. And let's be active about looking out for ourselves and those who matter to us, because no one else is going to do it.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Wallace, so much for giving me this time on your platform. I appreciate you so much. I really, really do. Thank you guys for listening.
No problem at all.
Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace here, dropping in with a little special announcement for those who have followed me for any stretch of time. Outside of the businesses that I run, like Myriad Business Solutions, the Visionetics Institute, Odyssey Media Group, I also do a great deal of work inside of the inner city communities in Houston, Dallas, and other areas. I'm asking now, as we push a fundraiser, that you support what the Odyssey Project is doing in the inner cities, especially with programs like Black Men Lead, which is a rite of passage initiative, and Restoring Ghetto's Forgotten Daughters, which is a program focused on helping young girls, but boys as well, suffering from childhood sexual abuse, rape, molestation, domestic abuse, absentee fatherhood, and so many other things. The information will be in the box. Thank you.
From a conceptual perspective, people talk about a desire to be successful.